All right, welcome back to a new version of the LA Guitar Hang. It's been a long time. I haven't done this for a while, and it's time to start up again, and I had to do it big this time, so I got one of the greats of all time, Mr. Ron Eschete, with me today. I'm super excited to talk to Ron. I've been a fan of Ron's forever, and I'm just looking forward to meeting with him today, and thank you for doing this, Ron. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, man. Beats working, you know?
Yeah, man. Ron and I were just talking cars a minute ago, and maybe we'll get back to that. But we're just gonna hang today and see where it goes, and you know, I'm sure I'll learn some new things about Ron, and just looking forward to hearing some great stories. So you're doing all right today, Ron? Good to see you.
Yeah, you know, at my age, above ground taking nourishment, that's a big deal.
That's it, man. That's it. Well, it's good to see you. And what have you been up to lately, man? You still teaching, or you? I know you're playing when you can.
I have a couple of students at Cal State Fullerton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of the teachers there.
Yeah.
I only take a couple of students, and I have a few weekend warrior type guys, you know, that come every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, but I've been playing a bit. You know, I've been working in San Pedro usually every Thursday night, and then the first Thursday of the month I work at McAllen's.
Right. Yeah. That's where I saw you recently. I played there.
Yeah, right. Me in the ambulance.
We could talk about that too. Yeah, that's kind of become a guitar hang in this town. I do it myself once a month, seems like, and I know you're doing it. And where are you playing in San Pedro?
Place called La Boca Feliz.
Who are you playing there with?
Hugh Von Kleist.
Oh, okay, cool.
Hugh Von Kleist and Blake.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
Blake.
yeah.
Blake's my guy, man. I gig
Yeah.
with Blake a lot.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you know Blake. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I gigged with him last weekend.
Oh.
Yeah, I've known Blake for years. He's a good bass player. You know, he used to be a hell of a guitar player too. Did you know that?
I understand. Yeah, I heard.
Yeah, I heard he was really good. I asked him why he switched to bass, and I guess he just dug bass more. I don't know. I'm sure he gigs a lot more. That's for sure.
Well, that's why I play the 7th string. I like to play the bass, you know.
Yeah,
So.
yeah.
I got a gig coming this weekend with Tony.
Oh yeah,
Tony,
where are you
Tony
guys playing?
And Wayne, the piano player, Wayne. But anyway, so what we do is you know, when he plays a solo, I play the bass on a 7th string, you know.
Right,
And when I solo, he plays the bass. You know?
right. Kind of like the Todd Johnson thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but with keyboard instead of bass.
yeah. That's cool. So he doesn't do organ then. He's just doing keyboards
Right.
with some bass.
Right.
Because
He's
I know
just playing a synthesizer, you know.
Right. I know you played with organ a bit back in the day as well.
Yeah,
So-
last recording I did was my buddy Jim Murad has a record company called Blueport.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, man, look, he says, I've recorded Tal Farlow and Joe Pass and everybody. He says, I need to record you, you know, for my
Yeah.
archives. You
Yeah,
know? So I
yeah.
said, okay. I said, just bring your stuff in. So one night, he came in with like a whole bunch of students that he had from Soka,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he teaches there, you know. And he just put the thing on, and I had Joe Bag with me
Mm-hmm.
playing him in B3,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and God, it came out really good. You know, I mean, it sounded like we've been playing together forever, he and I and Kendall.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing about that is, you know, Joe's very knowledgeable, you know, with harmony and everything. So that worked out really good for me.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's where I live.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, of course, all three of us are really good accompanists.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when we get together, we really accompany each other
Mm-hmm.
and chase each other around and everything. And we
Yeah.
had a really good night at the office,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Did that
So-
come out yet or not yet?
No, but I'll make sure you get a copy before you leave.
Oh, you already have it?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
I have a
wow.
bunch. I have a bunch of them.
Okay.
See, it's a CD. You know, I don't know
Oh.
if you have a CD player.
I have one in my older car. You know
Yeah.
what's funny is I still prefer CDs. Like I stream and the Tesla has the streaming, which is killer, but when you put a CD in a car in a good stereo, it sounds better. It just does.
Well, yeah, I got in my old 10. I got an old 10
Yeah.
Dodge, you know, and
Yeah.
it's got a CD player in it, and I got the subwoofer in the back and in the trunk and all
Nice.
that. So it's killer.
It's killer when
Yeah.
when you crank your hip hop music, right?
Yeah, right. Me and hip hop, right? Fat chance. Well, but you know, I came up on Bourbon Street.
Right.
You know, so I mean, I was playing, you know, James Brown and Wilson Pickett and Otis Redding.
Oh,
And
yeah.
all that stuff. I played all that funk.
Yeah.
And you know, that served me really well, being able to play the blues,
Yeah.
because, you know, that's what got me the gigs like with Ray Brown and Milt Jackson Quartet, you know.
Oh, man.
And
You
not
played
to
with
mention-
so many great players.
Well, you know, not to mention Gene Harris.
Yeah.
You know, Gene would always tell the story, you know, when he introduced me, he said, I heard, somebody told me when I was in LA, he said, there's a young white boy out in Orange County that plays like a brother, you know.
Yeah.
So he said, I put my disguise on
Uh-huh.
and went out and heard him, and he says, I hired him immediately,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So there's, you know, it was kind of a cute anecdote. I can't explain it the way he did it, you know.
Yeah.
It was funny, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
So let's go back. So you're from New Orleans, right? Did you grow up like downtown or outskirts?
No.
Or what?
I grew up in a little town south of there called Southwest, Houma, Houma.
Houma. Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Swamp People?
No, but I've heard about it.
Okay, if you watch Swamp People, all my uncles and everybody talk like that. You know. So.
Did they speak Cajun? Because I know there's a different language.
French. Oh yeah, it's French. As a matter of fact, I had a student when I was at MI. This is like 35 years ago.
Yeah.
You know. And I said a few words in French to him and stuff like that. He says, yeah. He says, you speak French like we spoke it 200 years ago, which makes sense.
Whoa.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I mean, the accent I had with it and everything. He said, yeah. He said, you speak like 200 years ago, because that's when the French came over here, you know, like in the 1700s, 1800s.
Right.
And stuff like that.
So
now,
you
when I was a
that?
kid, they wouldn't let you speak the language at school.
Uh-huh.
You know, and my mom and dad didn't want me to learn how to speak French because, you know, you were considered lower class if you spoke Cajun French, which, you know, is BS.
That's crazy.
And that's before
Wow.
stereo, you know?
Yeah.
To quote Paul Humphrey,
Yeah.
that's before stereo.
So you grew up there. Did you have like a musical family where people played or?
Well, you know, my brother took accordion lessons,
Mm-hmm.
and my sister took piano lessons, and we had a piano at the house.
Yeah.
And I didn't take any lessons till I got to college.
Okay.
You know, I just picked up the guitar at about 14 years old, and you know, by the time I was 15 or 16, I went to the local shop there, and I was playing. I was buying some stuff, and I heard this guy playing the guitar. Man, it was Howard Roberts. You know, he was playing either People or, I'm pretty sure he was playing People or Days of Wine and Roses.
Wait, not live, but like in a store.
On a record. She had it on She had it on the Victrola.
On the Victrola, nice.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So it just sucked me over there, and I said, "Who is this?"
Uh-huh.
She said, "Oh, that's Howard Roberts." I said, "Mine."
Nice. So what kind of
So-
music were you into before that?
Well, just, you know, I was playing funk and, you know, Ray Charles and all that kind of
So
stuff.
R&B, but basically.
Yeah, R&B. You know, that's what was popular down there.
Yeah.
And of course, I played a lot of country. Funny little story. When I first took up the guitar, my second cousin, Danny Robichaud, his dad played violin. You know, country. You know, played fiddle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and he'd always have rehearsals over there. That's why I met Bobby Petrie. He was a good guitar player, man, you know, country. You know, chicken picking.
Oh,
you know,
that stuff's killer.
You know, killer guitar player.
Yeah.
Anyway, not even thinking that I would ever play the guitar, but anyway, once I started playing, you know, I used to sit on the swing when I was a little kid with my sister, and she was 8 years older than me. And they were doing all the plays like Oklahoma and things like that.
Yeah.
So she would have me sing the melody so she could practice her alto parts.
Uh-huh.
You know, so we'd sit on the swing, and, you know, I'm like 5 years old and singing On the Street Where You Live and, you know, Strangers in Paradise and, you know, all kinds of tunes.
Right.
So when I took up the guitar, I already knew 200 tunes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could hear the forms in my head.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, you know, anyway, so to make a long story even longer, Danny his father, they had a little restaurant, restaurant. So they would get together like on Saturday night and maybe Friday and Saturday and play, with a country band.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they couldn't get a rhythm guitar player. So one of the guys told me, said, call little Ronnie. He said, because he doesn't use a capo.
Mm-hmm. You actually knew bar chords and stuff, right?
Yeah. So I could go in there and play the country and western tunes. It didn't matter what key they played it in. I could hear, and I knew the farms. You see, just from all the singing and stuff I did with my sister.
Right.
I give her a lot of credit for a lot of my musicianship. She was a big influence on me that way.
But you were self-taught on the guitar, though?
Oh yeah, to that point. Then I went to, I went to study classical guitar was my major in school.
Which school?
Loyola, at New Orleans.
Okay, so you went
on St. Charles Street there.
So you went to Loyola to study classical guitar. Was this like in the 60s or 70s or?
60s, 1967 to 70.
Okay.
I had a great pleasure studying with Paul Goomel, who was a good jazz guitar player. He was a good classical guitar player, and he played first clarinet in the symphony. The guy could read anything.
Yeah. And
he taught me how to read, man. I couldn't find one note from the other.
Oh, you couldn't read before then?
No, not really. I mean, I could make a little bit of a lead sheet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't totally adept at it.
Yeah.
But he taught me how to read much better.
Uh-huh.
But mostly I haven't done a ton of reading in my life. All my jobs have been, substituting, even early in my career, substituting for piano players.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
your style's very pianistic anyway, so it works
Well,
out.
yeah, orchestrated. I orchestrate. And I'll tell you the secret to that one. When we went to digital on TV, all those old programs from the 60s came up. Like Combat and The Fugitive and all those things. Untouchables and all that. Nelson Riddle, man. Oh, God,
yeah,
man.
amazing, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm listening to that and I'm going, I play that. I play that. I'm listening to this. I play that. I play that. Okay, light bulb go on. I remember sitting as a kid, sitting on the floor, watching those things and just getting the chills from the orchestra.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, when you're young, things sink in.
Yeah, all that harmony.
All that harmony just sunk in to me, and it has served me well. But to work with Ray Brown and Bill Jackson and people like that, you play the blues. And, because I've had kids come up to me, at a gig and say, "God, man, you and Todd are playing all this sophisticated harmony." He said, "But every now and then," he says, "Man, I hear you play the nastiest blues lick."
Yeah.
He said, "Where did you learn how to play the blues?" Right? So I said,
"You lived it."
Yeah, I said, I never learned how to play the blues. Mm-hmm. I could always play the blues. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it was around you when you were living in New Orleans.
Yeah, I'm walking around, you walking around the street, and there's two cats sitting on the front porch, one of them with a juice harp, right?
Yeah.
Harmonica.
Yeah.
And the other one playing slide. And I was hearing all that stuff like, Muddy Waters and Jimmy Reed.
Yeah.
And those cats,
Yeah.
it was like really natural, like I said. So I never learned how to play it. It's just part of the scene down there. Everybody played.
Yeah, yeah. And that is one of the things that I'm noticing is I've talked about this with other people. I find the blues is disappearing from music now. Like not just jazz guitar, but like in pop music. There's very blues influence left.
Well, the thing about that is, the beauty about that is, and this would probably help you with your own playing. Mm-hmm. If you look at it for the students out there.
Yeah.
If you go back and just, B.B. King and things like that.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to the 3-chord stuff.
Yeah.
And then you could just come up, go into like Jimmy Smith.
Yeah.
And those cats where they played the turnarounds.
Yep.
Right, all the blues and everything, okay? Like Charlie Parker.
Right.
And that whole era. And then you get up into the 60s, like with Chick Corea and Train and those people. And then you hear all that pandiatonic stuff.
Yes.
Where they're playing all the force and things like that.
Right.
But it's still the blues.
Yes.
It's still the blues. It's still, if you ran the 3 chords over it,
yeah,
it would still be the blues.
Yes. Yeah,
You know.
and I always tell myself, like, I play a lot of blues. Like, I play the B.B. King style, Albert King style as well. And
Yeah.
because I've always loved that, and I tell
Yeah.
my students, like, you really got to have the blues in there. And that's the first thing I work on with any of them is like, look, can we play a blues?
Yeah.
Because if not, that's a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And yeah, that's always been in your playing, and like you said, it's been around. Did you sit there and like learn BB King solos, or you just
Oh
heard it?
no.
Yeah.
No, that was.
So you just heard it. That's all.
Yeah, you just heard it. No.
Yeah.
You know. I came to LA, man, in December of 1970. And I went to, the Baked Potato. I went to a bunch of people. I heard about, I'm not mentioning any names, but I heard about all these guys, and all these famous guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I went and listened to them. And I went like, man, I just left Bourbon Street. And there's 4 guys playing on Bourbon Street that play at least this good.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
finally, then I get a hold of Dante's and I go over there, Barney Kessel and Joe Pass and Herb Ellis, and Jim Hall. I said, now I'm
That's
in the
different.
pocket, Now I'm in the pocket. Now I can go see some guys and learn stuff. And Mundell Lowe, I call him Uncle Monday.
Yeah.
I met him. Cute story about that. First time he gave me an Outstanding Musicians Award in 1968 at the Mobile Jazz Festival. It was a big band contest, which we won.
Yeah.
And I got one of the trophies up there.
Oh yeah. Okay.
But anyway, he gave me that, and he took me and Johnny Vidakovich, the drummer, and he took me. We went to his doctor's house and played, and Irby Green was playing trombone.
Wow.
Abe Mose was playing piano. Larry Ridley on bass. All these cats, from Blue Note, and
Yeah.
I was in shock. All these people Uncle Monday knew, but when I got to L.A., I see this Mercedes, parked out in front of Dante. So I walk in, and I said, Uncle Monday, I says, that's your car? He said, yeah. He said, I just got a big check in the mail. He says, anyway, to cut to the chase here, he says, yeah. He says, I did this movie. He said, John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith, and they all turned this movie down because it was like just a week out in the desert.
Yeah.
And I think they did it in New Mexico or whatever. But the movie was Billy Jack.
Oh man, huge
So
movie.
he wrote the music for
Mundell
Billy Jack.
Lowe wrote that?
Yeah, he
Holy
wrote the
crap.
music for Billy Jack. And so
That's why.
Yeah, that's why he hit it.
Wow. I didn't know that Mundell Lowe is one of those guys that he's a legend in the LA scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Florida and the East Coast, and I didn't know of him very much from there. But
you should have.
I
'cause
should
he did.
have. I
You
should
should have because he used to write for the NBC Orchestra.
Yeah,
When he lived in
okay.
New York, he was also the band on the Today Show. Him
Yeah.
and Hank Jones.
yeah. Does he have a bunch of solo records out? Because I
I have a few of his records.
Okay, I need to.
You
I'm
know.
embarrassed that I don't know a lot about him. There's just so many players, man.
But he's just, he's a master musician.
yeah,
And of course you see the picture up there with me and George
yeah.
Van Eps. You
I
want to
gotta
talk about it.
that. I gotta
You
talk about
you want to talk about a master musician.
it. Right. Well, let me ask you. Okay, so you're in New Orleans. You're in college. I'm assuming you graduated. When did you come to LA, and what made you come to LA and not New York?
Well, there was a comedy team, Freddie Bell and Roberta Lynn, that I used to work with in New Orleans. We had a place called the Black Knight down in Jefferson Parish. Beautiful club. And so when they bought a club here in Orange County, so right after I was on the road for a year with Buddy Greco,
Okay.
and I get a call from Frank Amos, the drummer. He said, Ronnie, they were opening a club. He says, would you like to come to, to California? And I said, yeah, I'd like to do that.
Yeah. Had you ever been here before? Or
No,
you just like the idea?
No. I came here and I loved it, man. I've been here ever since.
Where was it? Where was that club? If you
It was actually, if you know L.A. and Orange County, It was really on the corner of MacArthur and Newport Boulevard.
So it's kind of near the airport around there?
Yeah, in other words, if you go all the way to Coast Highway, I guess it would be Coast Highway, not
Oh,
Newport
yeah.
Boulevard.
Okay, Coast Highway.
Coast Highway in MacArthur,
Okay.
right? If you stop at that light, it was right on the right side across the street.
Oh, the scenery around there is beautiful, and it probably blew you away coming here back then,
I was
right?
seeing mountains and stuff, man. I remember Carol came out to visit me, my wife, she came out and she said, "What are those things over there?" I said, because it was nighttime,
Yeah.
You could see a little bit with the stars. That's mountains. She said, "Mountains, Louisiana, you never saw a mountain."
It's flat, yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing, I mean, closest thing to a mountain would be a bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. And the weather here, too. I mean, New Orleans is hot and muggy.
After Louisiana, no way I'm going back there.
Yeah. That's how I felt when I left Florida. I'm like, I'm never going back. I mean, the weather here is so great.
Yeah.
So you came out, you got the gig, I'm assuming, and you played there for a while?
Yeah, I played there for over a year, and for a little while, I found a folk gig with a cat, a local kind of popular cat, and accompanied him for a few months, and then I put a top 40 band together myself with my wife. By then we were married, with my wife and a couple of cats,
So she was a
And
singer?
the guy I came out here with, Jay Sessa, good bass player, good guitar player, good singer. So we had 3 singers in the band because I sang in those days. I grew up in the choir. At 6 years old, I was in the choir.
Yeah.
And all the way through high school and some in college too.
Yeah.
I was always in the choir. But the more I got into the guitar, the less I wanted to sing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So was your wife a singer? So she was a singer and you guys are performing, but you were still playing jazz too, right, at the time?
Well, I was playing it on my own, going to jam sessions and stuff like that.
Okay.
But in '74 I got the gig used to go play with Dave Pike and Tom Renier and Ted Hawk and Luther. We used to play a lot at a place called Hungry Joe's.
Okay.
And I worked a whole year there in '75 with Gene Harris. And after that, which was great, Gene moved out to Boise and kind of just worked the local club there for years, just kind of got out of the scene.
Yeah.
Because he was on the Chitlin circuit for years with the 3 Sounds. He didn't want to do that anymore, So he took a long break from that. And he had a club. He would play 3-4 nights a week. Met a nice lady, Jane, his wife. They got married, and it was heaven for him.
Yeah.
So he leaves town. It's 1975. I'm working at Dante's. I think this might have been almost the end of 75, something like that. 74, 75. I can't remember. Anyway. We're playing, man, on the bandstand, and in walks Hampton Hawes. And I looked at John Perrette, my drummer. I said, "Man, that's Hampton Hawes." So he and I and Luther were playing. So we got on a break, and I went over to him and I said, "Mr. Hawes, I just want to shake your hand and meet you, sir." I said, obviously I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me, and he went kind of in a raspy voice. He says, "Hey, kid." Says, "You wouldn't happen to know where I could get a guitar trio to back me up on some gigs?" And I said, "What?" I said, "Are you joking?" He said, "No, man, it's just, you guys are swinging your ass off. Just come play with me." I said, "You got a band."
Yeah.
So he stayed in town for about a year. We worked with him. We did some concerts and stuff like that. And I always tell the story, the guys are talking about, I have such a good swing feel and all of that, but that was, for me, Gene Harrison and Hampton Hawes, that was graduate school, because they're the 2 swingingest piano players on the planet.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys would probably disagree with me, but they never played with Gene Harrison and Hampton Hawes.
Well, those guys are swingers. I don't know why you disagree.
And another thing, too, something really cool about Hamp. Hamp could really play the electric piano, the Fender Rhodes.
Oh, wow.
Everybody played piano, but he really played that instrument very well.
Right.
And he would bring it with him all the time. You know, we'd be playing Dante's, he had acoustic. And he'd look over and say, "Hey, Ronnie, I'm going to play this on electric piano." I said, "Great." You know, then he'd say, "Hey, Ronnie, I'm going to play this on acoustic." I said, "Great."
Yeah.
You know, it's like, man, whatever you play, it's just tearing it up. You know?
Yeah.
And he was a sweet cat. He was sweet to me. He was sweet to us.
Yeah.
You know, he was a nice cat.
Yeah.
But he only stayed in town for about a year. Same with Bobby Brookmeyer. Bobby Brookmeyer came to town. And we had a job, he and I, Mike Steffens, the drummer, and John Hurd, we played a lot together. You know, played a bunch of gigs, and we'd get together once a week and play at John Hurd's house.
Wow.
You know, and it was a lot of fun. It was good days. You know, I was young and strong, and you know, hey, you want to have a rehearsal? You want to go do this? Go do that. You know.
And now, were you living in Orange County or LA at that time?
Well, I was living in Orange County. I lived in Orange County from December of '70 till '76 or '7.
Okay.
Then I moved to Norwalk, not here, but I had a condo for a year.
Okay.
Then I moved here.
Okay.
So I moved here in March of '78.
Oh, so you've been here since then?
Yeah.
Cool.
I've been in this house, whatever, for 46 years or something like
Long
that.
time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I had always, being from the East Coast, you know, you hear about LA and you would always hear about Dante's, right? And was huge, way before my time. I never saw it, but I know Joe Pass, Barney Kessel, all Lenny Bro. So
Yeah,
what was
all the
that
cats-
like
all the
seeing all
cats
those
played
guys?
it.
What was
Yeah,
that like?
I got a chance to see all of that, and Howard and all those cats.
Oh
you know.
my God.
You know, that was great. You know, it was quite an experience for me. You know, it was really good, man. And you know, I give Howard credit, man. You know, Howard was using a ring modulator like in the early '70s, you know, and stuff like that. I kind of give Howard. He was really kind of the first fusion guitar player.
Wow.
I think.
Even before Coryell?
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I think he was. I think Howard was the cutting edge of that.
Wow.
You know, I would have to give him credit for that. You know.
So you would see him, and you said Jim Hall. Jim Hall wasn't living in L.A., was he?
No, but
But
he
he
would
would just
come to
perform
town
there?
every now and then. You know.
Yeah.
And by then, George Van Eps, I hardly ever got to see. I didn't really get to see George Van Eps till I started playing with him. You know.
Because George, was he living in Huntington Beach or something?
Yeah, he was living in Huntington Beach.
Wow. And Howard Alden's from Newport Beach, because I know Howard was close
Yeah.
with George.
Well, he was a student of mine, and am I.
Howard was.
Howard, yeah,
Okay.
Alden.
Yeah, Howard
You
Alden.
know, and of course, you know, he's been successful because
Yeah.
he hasn't listened to too much that I had to say.
I took a lesson once with Howard in New York, and I had mentioned I live in L.A., and he's like, "Oh, you know Ronnie?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh yeah, I love Ron." You know, he mentioned you. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was very fortunate, man. In about 19, what was it, about 82 or 83. Well, before that, I played a lot with Don Rader.
Okay.
If you get a chance, we did 1980, June or July of 1980, we did a video at the Great American Music Hall. John Perrette on drums, Kevin Brandon on bass, me on guitar, and of course Rage was playing trumpet and flugelhorn. But if you ever want to look that up, it's Jet Danger Records, Don Rader.
Okay.
And
Maybe it's on YouTube.
I look like my grandson. If you've never seen, I look like my grandson. I was 32 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and I was really young.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't get carded till I was about 28. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I was baby face. You know, back in those days.
I saw a video of you a while ago. It was in some concert, and it was like 80s or 70s, and you were like, looked like a kid, and you were still killing. I was like, geez, that's a young Ron back then. I can't remember who it was with either. I just remember seeing it going, wow, he was really young back then.
Yeah.
You'd be
we all were
surprised.
young at one time.
YouTube has everything. I mean, do you go on there much? I mean, there's Wes
Every now and
Montgomery
then,
videos
yeah.
from like.
Yeah, I got some Wes Montgomery videos myself. You know, I
Yeah.
got some DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
I got that one of him in Europe.
Yeah,
You
all
know.
that stuff's on YouTube. there's like these, and you'd be surprised, like some of these like different countries, they would professionally record a concert. Like there's some Miles Davis, like the Bitches Brew Band playing.
Yeah,
Amazing, and like professionally recorded. Like
Yeah.
the quality's excellent.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what's on there. But anyway, so you were
So we recorded that, but for
Okay.
those who want to see that,
Okay.
it's Jet Danger Records,
Okay.
and it's Don Raider.
Okay, Don
You know,
Raider, and it's
yeah.
probably on YouTube.
Oh, it is on YouTube.
Okay.
You could access it on YouTube.
Okay, cool.
You know, yeah. But let's see, where was I? I was doing
Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead. So I had a question
I was
about
about 83.
Yeah.
George Van Eps.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So I'm working with Dewey, my buddy Dewey. the
Dewey
singer.
Ernie, yeah.
Yeah, Dewey Ernie. You know, we've been playing together for about 45 years, whatever. You know. Anyway, so Dewey and I are at this club in Westminster. Nice place, Sir something. I can't remember the name of that place.
Yeah.
But it was a beautiful, beautiful place, you know, all wood and everything. So one night I'm playing, man, and in walks George Van Eps.
Wow.
And I looked over at Dewey, I started shaking. You know, I was terrified.
Yeah.
You know. And so I said, Dewey, you know who that is? He said, no. He said, that's George Van Eps. I said, you know, if it's not St. Peter, it's close.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of the guitar, you know?
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, I get in a break and shake it and go over and shook his hand, and he was so sweet
Yeah.
and so nice. You know, he said, well, you know, I heard you was a 7th string player. He said, I wanted to hear you, Ron. You know.
Wow.
But, you know, the first time I met him, he was playing with Tony Reezy out in Seal Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And so he took a break, and we just happened to both end up in the can at the same time. So I told him, I said, George, I said, you sound amazing. I said, that piece you played, you know, he called it lap guitar.
Mm-hmm.
He played this piece, and it was absolutely gorgeous, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he looks at me, he says, well, bar 19, I messed up bar 19. He says, I got to go home and practice that.
Yeah.
But, you know, here he is, you know, he's, 75 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, and he said, I got to go home and practice that because he missed the bar. You know,
Yeah, well, that's,
you know,
yeah.
but that's George, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, that was him. You can't outwork him.
Were you transcribing any of his stuff, like when you were
Not
like,
too
earlier?
much, pieces of things here and there. Now, Howard Alden did a lot of that.
Yeah, he did.
Howard did a lot of his stuff. He did that tango, man. He performed, I heard it. It sounded beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, how you know, I struggle with the guitar, man. You know, it's a funny thing. It's a funny thing about that. You know, most guys can play the hell out of the guitar. I've always struggled physically with the guitar.
Yeah.
But I've never struggled musically. Music just came
Yeah.
because of my sister and all the things that I went through.
Yeah.
You know, and
You don't sound like you struggle with the guitar though, man.
well.
I mean, you have great technique and great chops. It's not like you.
No, I'm well studied. I'm schooled.
Yeah.
You know, Mr. Gooba took real good care of me.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, compared to some of the guys, you know, but you know, back in the '80s and '90s and stuff like that, I could play bebop too. You know, I mean, really quick.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I could play all that stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, now with all the injuries I've had and everything, I'm better musically, but I'm not as, you know, I'm a memory of myself, you know.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy playing, and I'm writing, like I told you, I'm writing another fake book for myself, you know, I'm just not publishing or nothing. You know, I just like the tunes, you know, and guys are, first thing I tell students, I said, if you want to learn how to play music, you got to study songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just tunes.
Yeah.
You know, jazz players write tunes.
Yeah.
Composers write songs.
Yeah.
You know, I said, you got to learn songs
Yeah.
as well as the tunes.
Right.
You know, because the tunes in bebop are based on songs.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, American Songbook. I mean, you can't beat that. That's like the best.
Yeah, I mean
songs ever
that's
written.
the whole school. That's why I learned everything.
Mhm.
Now, by the time I was about 19, I found Bill Evans. and that changed my life. That just took me another whole other place. You know, because I wasn't hearing the guitar players playing those kinds of harmonies and stuff.
There's nobody doing that.
You know.
You know who played some really, people don't talk about him enough, but
Lenny Bro?
Well, Lenny Bro, of course.
Yeah.
He was very close to Bill Evans in that regard. But like Tal Farlow.
Oh, yeah.
People don't, like his intros and stuff.
Yeah.
He was very harmonically advanced, more than maybe anybody that I can recall.
Jimmy Rainey, too. He was playing polychords.
But I didn't hear him do a lot of chord melodies.
No,
stuff.
not chord melodies, but the melodies he wrote.
Yes, yes.
Like Motion and Lee.
Yes.
And Signal, those three tunes. I play those.
You think he was inspired by Tristano with all that stuff?
Obviously Lee.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah.
But he was playing, you know, like D over C and E over C and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
You know, way back when, I'm talking about in the 50s.
I know.
But even before you know, the 60s with Train and all of them were doing that. He was doing that in the 50s.
Yeah.
You know, Tal Farlow too.
Yeah.
They were doing that in the 50s.
Yeah. Tal was way, way ahead.
Now, they never got credit for that.
Right.
You know, the guys in the 60s got credit for that. I think that has a lot to do with information.
Yeah.
You know, by the time the 60s came, the information centers were a lot better than in the 50s. You know, we made a real big leap from the 50s to the 60s in technology.
Right.
You know, stereo came in and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
In the 50s, everything was mono, man.
Right.
You know. And, I mean, I'm just talking to that as a perspective.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As to what was going on.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter who did it. It's just a matter of that Tal was doing those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Rainey also. More single note.
Yes.
And Tal was doing it a lot with, you know, playing the chords, you know.
Have you seen that? There's that movie about Tal Farlow, and in the end, there's like this gig of Lenny Bro and Tal Farlow playing together. Have you seen that?
I saw the Lenny and Tal playing together.
Yeah,
I saw that.
That's
It was
cool.
Great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What was Lenny like? Did you know him?
I talked to him briefly because I was at MI. He used to come there and do some things, just like Pat Martino. Pat was there for about 6 months.
Yeah.
But you know, Lenny was like a dog from another town. You know, he was. He had some other stuff going, and he was kind of a little bit aloof.
Yeah.
You know, not mean or anything, or conceited. He was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
But he had a lot of people in his space all the time, so
yeah.
You know, I never bothered to bother him. You know,
right.
because you know, back in those days, I wasn't known at all as any kind of entity. You know, I was really young. You know.
Yeah.
He was a few years older than me. You
Yeah.
know, he was probably 8 or 10 years older than me.
And he, you know, he did the 7-string, but he had the high A instead of low A, which that's a whole other thing.
Yeah, another ball game. He was hearing things more like the piano.
Yeah.
You know, whereas myself, I want the piano and the orchestra. You know.
Yeah.
Like George. You know, that's what George did. You know. Yeah. So I kind of followed in his footsteps.
When did you switch to 7-string?
About 1982.
82, and then like what you probably had to get the Gretsch, right? The Van Eps model. There probably wasn't that many 7-strings.
No, I had an old Goya that I loved, and I had it converted.
A Goya, is that like a Gibson copy kind of a thing?
No. It's a company in Sweden.
Oh, okay.
Levine, Goya Levine.
Was it an archtop guitar?
Oh yeah, it was a big one too. It was an 18. It was a little thinner. It was about 3 inches thick, but it was an 18. That's why my back was so bad all the time.
Was the neck wide enough?
Yeah, no, I had a neck put on it.
Oh, a new neck.
But then I got in touch with Bob Benedetto, and he made me my first, you know, like real 7-string.
His guitars are phenomenal. I mean.
Yeah, I have 2 of them. Wow. I have 2 of them. So
you switched to 7-string Benedetto, and then I know you've had a few other luthiers, and you had
Jim Mapson. I love that guitar, and I almost rolled over it, and I crushed the top of it a bit.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I got sidetracked at a gig with talking to some people, and I thought I had already put the guitar in the car, but I had it on the opposite side of the guitar, of the car.
Wow.
You know, just I didn't roll over it, thank God, but I did crack the top of it.
That was.
But anyway, he has it, and I want him to fix it up for me. This is years ago. And C.B. Hill was working on my guitars for 35 years.
He built you the one.
And he says, Ronnie, I'm going to build you a guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I said, really? He said, yeah. He says, look, I got it. He says, don't worry. He says, I wrote down everything you liked and disliked of the guitars that you had over the years.
Yeah.
And sure enough, man, he made me two. I have two of his guitars, both identical.
Yeah.
You know, one's gray and one's brown. And it's for those who keep it score, the guitar players, it's a 24.6. You know.
So it's a short scale, like a Gibson.
Yeah, one of my favorite guitars was that Howard Roberts I had.
I was going to ask you what kind of guitars you used back in the day. So before you got the 7-string, when you were gigging in LA, what were you playing then?
I was playing that Howard Roberts Epiphone.
Okay, yeah.
You know, I had a D'Angelico that was an L5 size, and I ended up selling it, you know, because it's just too big. I'm a little guy. You know?
Yeah, you know, I ended up getting a guitar last year. I got a, you ever heard of a Campolone, Mark Campolone?
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with him, yeah.
He made me an L5.
Yeah.
I've always wanted an L5, and I can't
Yeah.
afford a Gibson because they're so expensive, so he made me one.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal, but it's big.
Yeah.
I nickname it Fat Bastard, you know?
Yeah, fat.
And I got a bad shoulder,
Do you have the chicken in between the rolls? The chicken balls?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you get the reference.
Oh yeah, I get the reference.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a beautiful guitar. I don't play it much because it's so big, but I wanted one.
What's your gigging act? What do you gig with?
I am more of a semi-hollow guy. I have a few semi-hollows. I love semi-hollows because of the sustain.
Yeah.
I have a few Collings guitars. Those are my favorite. I have a Collings archtop that I absolutely love. It's very, very comfortable.
You gotta come over and bring a couple of your guitars. I like to see them.
Yeah.
And I can show you some stuff that I have here too. I don't have a lot of guitars.
Yeah. Well, that's smart.
Like I only play one at a time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the 2 CBs, so I have backup.
Yeah.
You know, and I had Bobby Benedetto make me a couple of other guitars. With one guitar I have here is the first neck through that he ever made. Everything has always been solid. I have the first one.
Oh wow.
Shoot, Chris, I'm trying to think of his name from England.
Guitar maker?
Guitar player.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, maybe I'll think of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, he had one made, but that was a Birdland size, you know, 16 across instead of 17.
Yeah.
And 2 1/4.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I went with Mapson, Map made me basically a 335 with a block, but it was a 16 instead of 17.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I had a Jimmy Foster for a while that I sold.
That's right. I remember you had that.
Yeah. It wasn't very practical for playing gigs. It fed back a lot, you know, but it played really well.
Yeah. And
then, you know, now the CB guitars.
Yeah.
You know, I have 2 of those, and so that's what I have. I have 2 Benedettos and 2 CBs.
Yeah. All 7 strings, right?
Yeah.
Does it feel weird if you pick up a 6-string?
No.
Oh, it feels fine?
Yeah.
I had a 7-string for a minute. It was like some custom thing when I was in Florida. And I actually, with the low A, I took to it it wasn't that hard. I would just flip the thing over.
Well, see, for me, I play classical guitar with a D tuning.
Interesting.
You know, so I was used to that 5th instead of a 4th.
Yeah.
So I took to it like a duck to water.
Yeah.
You know, it did take, I mean, I got that Benedetto, and 6 months later I did a solo duo record with Dewey.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I took to it right away.
Yeah.
And I told my students, I've converted a lot of my students to 7-string because I told them, musically the 7-string is much easier.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Physically it's a little bit more difficult, a little more cumbersome because you got another string.
Yeah.
But musically it's the perfect one. You know, some of the guys had an 8-string. I tried that, and
too much.
You know, didn't dig it.
6 is hard enough for me.
You know, but 7 is perfect because, like I said, musically is perfect.
Yeah.
And if you look in your Bible, which I read every day,
Mm-hmm.
you find that 7 represents perfection.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so and it is
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but I tell my students that all the time. I said, look, you know, musically, the 7 string is a lot easier for you to play.
Yeah.
You know.
Who are, I'm trying to think. I know Neil, my buddy Neil, plays 7 string because of you. Neil Adams.
Oh yeah. In fact, he's got 2 guitars like mine.
CB Hills, right? Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Who else? Who are some of your other students that play 7 string?
Well, not Howard Olin, of course.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, Steve Cotter doesn't play 7 string. He was
Right.
a student of mine for quite
Right.
a while.
Right.
John Story, Will
Yeah.
Brown,
Oh yeah, you taught a lot of great players.
Shane Savalas,
Right.
Hajime Kato
Mm-hmm.
was at MI. He's in Japan.
Yeah.
He has a maps in 7 string. Yeah.
You might be teaching one of my ex-students, Sean Bierman. Are you working with him?
Sean? No,
I taught him at Cypress, and he's at your school, but I don't know if he's with you yet. I think he's maybe with, who's the other guitar teacher there?
Matt? Was it Matt or
Yeah,
was it
maybe
Zach?
Matt or Zach, one of those two,
Yeah.
yeah. But he's...
Yeah, well, I got Zach the gig over there. But I talked to Matson about 2 or 3 months ago. And he had a friend, he was up north, and he had a friend that had cancer, was in bad shape.
Yeah.
And so I never bothered to call him back. I'm going to call him and wish him Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
You know. But he told me when I saw him last, I did a gig for him. And me and Luther and Paul Kryvik.
Mm-hmm.
And we did a lunch and brunch for him at some place, you know.
Yeah.
And down in Dana Point, I think it was. Anyway, he told me he had the guitar all apart. You know, he was...
Oh, so he's going to still fix it?
Yeah, because I like that guitar, man.
Yeah, why not get it back?
There was nothing wrong with that guitar.
Yeah.
You know.
That was the guitar when I used to see you play at Steamers all those years. That was your
my
guitar.
Probably some of the best playing I ever did, technically, is on that guitar.
Yeah.
And now, see, that's a 25-inch.
Yeah.
That's a 25-inch scale.
Mm-hmm.
And Saul Cole, there's a Ron Eschete model Saul Cole that I had made up, which is like a Steinberger.
Interesting.
And I forget the name of the other one, but the body, man, you could rest that thing on your thing. And I loved that guitar. It sounded great. It played great. And it was a 25 and a half.
Yeah.
You know, and it played great. But I sold it to a student who was from San Francisco because I would bring it to rehearsal and the guys would go like, you know, Ron, that guitar sounds great, but you're going to bring the other guitar, right, to the gig. You know, and they were like really concerned about it, you know, like.
Really?
You know, the older cats, man, they didn't want to see that.
Look too modern?
Yeah, look too modern.
That shouldn't matter, though. I mean...
Well, no, but at the time, I understood.
Yeah.
It was business.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't want to make waves. You know, look, man, I'm working with Jerome Richardson.
Yeah.
You know, and Paul Humphrey, and
yeah.
You know,
they want that
Alan
arched
Jackson
top look
and all that. You know, I work with a lot of black bands.
Yeah.
You know, and I was the only white guy. You know, Dizzy and
you play with Dizzy?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know, he used to come with. He'd show up when I was working with Ray Brown and Milt Jackson, and Mickey Roker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was the quartet, and then you know he would come in when we did like a concert. He would come and play with us.
Now that group of guys, they did some records on Pablo in the 70s with Joe Pass, right?
Yeah.
Mickey Roker and Ray and Milt and all those guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate, but you know, full circle. I got the gig. You know, Cedar Walton and Monty Alexander were the piano players he would call, but they were rarely available. You know what I mean? He could get one of them every now and then. And, you know, between the two of them, they covered about half the jobs, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to mention any names, but they got another guitar player who could play, and he played all the sophistication, but couldn't play the blues, you know. So when Bags heard me, Bags loved me, man.
Yeah.
He said, man, this boy can play the blues.
Yeah.
You know, so immediately, and I could play the sophisticated harmony.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was like, at that time, this is before, you know, Anthony Wilson and Russell Malone and those cats came along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was the only cat who around basically that could do that at a high level. You know,
Mm-hmm.
play both of those schools.
Yeah.
You know, so I got a lot of work of it.
Yeah.
That's why the blues is very, you know, very sweet to me. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
You know, it served me well to feed my family.
Well, it gives your music a bigger depth to it. Because as I was listening to that live at Rocco's today, you know, you hear all the harmony and stuff, and it's amazing. But then you hear you know, when it's bluesy, like on, you know, It Ain't Necessarily So, you guys are like getting down, and it's
Funny
bluesy.
you should mention that, man. Life is so strange. I was singing that in my head this morning. Every morning I wake up, I got a song in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And this morning it was Ain't Necessarily So.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, every day.
Yeah. That's awesome. You ever had any problems with your shoulders? You said because I'm dealing with some shoulder issues.
I took a fall in 2010.
Uh-huh.
It was raining. My dog tripped me.
Yeah.
And I went flat down on this right shoulder.
Uh-huh.
Hurt the rotator cuff and the bicipital tendon.
Did you have to get any surgery or anything?
No, I got treatment.
Okay.
You know, I do exercises every other day. I got about 14 exercises I do for my shoulder.
Yeah.
But anyway, in 2020, right before the pandemic, I took another fall on my gym and just pushed it out of the socket.
Oh my God.
You know, so I had to go to the hospital and get it put back in place and everything.
Wow.
And believe it or not, that was, you know, hugely painful. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
You know, but the minute they put it back in, no pain.
Yeah.
But the minute they put it back in.
Yeah.
And the doctor asked me, he says, how many times have you pushed the shoulder out? I said, this is the first time. He said, okay. He said, just be careful. He says, because most people who come in to me, he says, this is like the second or third or fourth time it's out of place.
Wow.
But it took 4 big guys to pull that shoulder back in place. They had to put me out. They had to put me out, man, because they tried putting it back in place when I was awake, and I, you know, like I was screaming pain.
Oh my God.
You know, but yeah, you know, so that's when I switched to the thumb strap, because I can't, my shoulder doesn't, and bicep doesn't work as good anymore. You know, that's how I'm a memory myself, technically, you know.
Well, I was wanting to ask about that because, like, I'm having shoulder issues. And I'm trying to talk to, you know, older guitar players, and like if they've been through the same thing or whatever, I'm probably gonna have to have surgery. It's like a torn labrum in there, and get that fixed. But I can move it and stuff. But I notice if I play for hours, it gets really sore.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking it's not gonna get better as I get older, so I'm gonna have to.
Yeah,
get it
just
dealt
be
with.
careful. Make sure you get somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I got really bad feet, and I asked the doctor, who's a great surgeon, you know, very knowledgeable cat, Dr. Lowe.
Yeah.
And he said, look, Ron, he says, let me get you some orthotics. And he says, the last thing you want to do is surgery.
Okay.
He says, because, you know, you can take an MRI and an X-ray, and he says, we really don't know what we're looking at till we open your foot.
Right.
You know, and he says, and I got this from a couple other doctors too.
Yeah.
The surgery works out about 50% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But out of that 50%, sometimes it's worse.
Yeah.
In other words, the surgery makes the problem worse.
Wow. Okay.
So he said the best thing you can do is just get surgery. I found these sketches, you know, arch fits, and I can get during the day. Now, if I go for a walk,
yeah,
I got some professional orthotics that I put in my New Balance. You know, You know.
Yeah.
But I mean, after we do, I can show you a couple exercises that I do for shoulder.
Okay. Hand. Yeah. Thanks.
You know.
Yeah. I that's a whole other thing. But So getting back to what was some of your first solo records you did? I know you're playing all these guys, and eventually I'm sure you get a record deal from
Well, my
somebody.
first record was Times Out of Mind with Dave Pike,
Okay.
Tom Rainier, Luther, Ted Hawk,
Okay.
and I shared that record with Kenny Burrell,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Wow.
And so
Yeah.
the producer Bill Metz brought it to Jack LaWork, who had JAS Records, which is a subsidiary of A&M
Mm-hmm.
at that time.
Right.
And he listened to the record and he said, "Man," he said, "Boy, Kenny sounds great on that tune, you know." And Bill told me, he said, "That's not Kenny."
That's wrong.
You know, he said, "Who is it?" He said, "It's a young cat named Ron Eschete." He said, "Sign him up."
Nice.
So I get a call out of the blue.
Uh-huh.
And it's Bill. He says, "Hey, Ronnie, Bill Metz." He says, "Look, I booked Sage and Sound Studio in 2 weeks." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Jack will work like what you did. He wants to record you."
Wow.
So I put that record together, Spirit Samba, in a couple of weeks.
What year was that?
76.
Okay, so that's your first record.
Yeah.
And then how many have you done approximately, like under your own name?
On my own name, Spirit Samba, To Let You Know I Care, and Line Up, those 3. Then I did 3 for Concord, and 1 for Jazz Alliance, which was their subsidiary. And then I did Rocco,
Mm-hmm.
you know, In the Middle. And the most recent one is How My Heart Sings with Joe Bag, that one I told you about. That
Oh.
live record at Steamers.
Okay.
Back in 2011.
Okay.
That's the last thing I did,
Uh-huh.
you know. So.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, and the solo guitar record, which I still haven't heard. I gotta get that.
All right.
I'm
Let's
gonna
call a closer look.
I want to transcribe that one. You steal your shit.
Please.
Yeah, I don't take lessons that much anymore. I just transcribe people because I figure out what they're doing just from doing that.
What
You know.
for? What for?
Yeah.
You take a pause.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh. Whew. Man,
All right, back from break. Anyway, so I know you've been teaching a lot, and in the local scene here, a lot of the top players in town you've taught. You know, a lot of friends of mine, they study with you at the different schools and stuff. Like what are some of the basic things you work on with a lot of your students? Do you have kind of a certain approach, or just does it depend on the student?
Oh yeah, I have a very simple approach.
Mm-hmm.
I write things out. I have a little book I give out that's figured bass for jazz. It's really kind of based on Bill Evans.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, you hear like Wes and those guys will all fall in fourths. You know, minor to dominant half steps and things like that.
Yeah.
I show them all those things, but really the first lesson, and I can just put it here, the whole lesson in a few words.
Yeah.
A chord is a scale, is an arpeggio.
Mm-hmm.
The more you know about chords, the arpeggios and scales will follow.
Right.
Okay, that's one part.
Yeah.
The second part is songs.
Mm-hmm.
If you do those 2 things, those 2 basic things, you'll learn how to play.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, besides, you know, you want to learn your majors and minor scales and things like that.
Do you make them learn all the fingerings? Because like I know some teachers don't do, like I've had a lot of students from other teachers where like they come in and they don't know their neck at all, and it blows my mind that they don't know this. Do you make them learn that as well? Like,
well, I check them out. Most of the guys I get, fortunately, are above that scale because I don't really take beginners.
okay.
You know,
So they come in, they know all their major scale forms.
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff.
I check them out. You know, I check them out and make sure they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I have a system for that, a cage system of my own.
Yeah.
That I do if they don't know it.
Yeah.
You know.
Mm-hmm.
But the basic thing is a chord is a scale, is an arpeggio, learn tunes, and then we start talking about that book of mine, you know, which is all the reharmonizations and dealing with all 12 intervals and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't really consider myself as much a guitar teacher as more of a music teacher.
Right.
You know, I don't approach it the way most guys do. You know, because to me it's, you know, I have to pull line from Barney Kessel. It's not about the instrument you play; it's the music you put on it.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
And so I look at the guitar from a more musical standpoint. You know, most of the guys they get a bunch of stuff together. They get a bunch of stuff together, and you know, okay, I'm hot shit. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I can't be conceited because I don't look at music that way. To me, it's like the stars in the sky.
Right.
It's infinite.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, just take Bach for example. He sure did a lot with 12 notes.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Definitely.
As well as so many other composers, and we talked about when we went to digital and stuff like that. I'm hearing all these different orchestra stuff. You know.
Yeah. I read some interviews recently where some of these great musicians like you, they were little kids growing up in the 50s and 60s and saying that the TV music was hugely influential to them.
Yes.
Because the level of the composers.
I'd sit there and get the chills.
Yeah.
You know, my mom and dad would be watching the movie, and me, I'd be listening to the music.
Yeah.
You know, and just getting the chills, man, sitting there listening. It's so beautiful to me.
I love Bernard Herrmann on the Hitchcock movies.
Yeah, not bad, huh?
Amazing.
But I really liked Leonard Roseman. He was really great. He did Combat and another bunch of things. And of course, Nelson Riddle, who did Untouchables and you know, Route 66, you know, the TV series.
I didn't know that one. That was before
Martin
my
Miller,
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
First chord. It's an F, you know, that goes da 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 dee da 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 da. Okay, but the first note is B. Melody's B, and you're an F. You know, so it's sharp. First note is a sharp 11.
Right.
And it's a big orchestra, and there's a big G triad over F major.
Yeah.
You know, that's first chord, man.
Yeah.
First beat.
That's it.
You know, like, and it's like, bah, it's huge.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So when Todd and I got together, you know, everybody would say, what do you use an electric bass for? I said, because there ain't no bass players that playing upright can play me C7.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the other thing, the live at Rocco's. There were times where I thought I heard organ, but that was just Todd using a pedal to sound like an organ, right? Because I swear I definitely hear bass, but I hear organ a little bit. And I remember I think Todd used to use a pedal for that.
Right.
Then.
Yeah, he had a hookup for that. He had a MIDI hookup.
Where is he now? I remember he moved away.
He moved to Arizona, Phoenix.
Okay.
He lives in Phoenix, and he's doing quite well.
I wonder if he gigs with Howard, because Howard lives there.
He plays with a couple of other guys. I think they're two brothers, a drummer and a guitar player. There, and he works a lot, of course, because he's an accompanist.
He's great, yeah.
You know, he's an accompanist.
Do you ever
Because
go out
I found him at MI. You know, he came in one day and I saw he had a 6-string electric bass, and I had been doing some stuff like that with Dave Enos, and Dave just got too busy for us to get together. But you know, I said, hey, you think you could do this? You know, and I turned over to some records and I showed him, you know, what I was doing, you know, playing the bass and the changes. And he took to it like a duck to water, man.
Yeah.
And he does it better than me.
Well, he does it musically too. It's not like just chops, and the groove is always there, and you know, it's man. Yeah, I remember watching you guys. Man, you were there for years and years. I used to go.
I was there for 20 years, man.
Yeah.
I was
every
45
Thursday.
years old when we started, and I was 65 when we finished.
Wow. Every Thursday, I would go a lot of them. I didn't go to every single one, but I was at a lot of them, and I used to love. I always tell this story. You wouldn't remember this, but you were playing there one night. You were playing this this ballad. It was really beautiful, and it wasn't that packed. And I was like on top of the stage. I was like 2 feet from you, and sometimes I'd whisper things, and you'd kind of like we're almost having a conversation.
Yeah. And
you were playing something, and I swear it really sounded like Johnny Smith.
Yeah.
And I said, Johnny. And then you were in the middle of playing and you stopped and you looked down and you said, no, man, that's Van Eps. It like stopped in the middle of the song and I was like, oh my God. I was so embarrassed. I was like, I didn't mean for you to stop the tune. But it was really funny. It was
But there's
cool.
3 guys, you know, George played some of that stuff, and of course Johnny was famous for playing some of those things, but there's another cat, John Gray, who played like that too.
I never heard of him.
He was a studio musician here in LA. He used to record a lot. Great guitar player, man.
Wow.
Great guitar player. I mean,
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, think about, you know, all the greats that have existed. There's hundreds and hundreds of other guys that were out there that never made it, that guys like you would know because they were on the scene.
well, I mean, you know, here you go. That's one guy, John Gray, you know, Herb Ellis and all those cats, they knew him.
Yeah.
You know, he was a great guitar player. He moved to Florida and he was doing Let's Make a Deal in Florida.
Wow.
He used to, if ever you listen to some of those in the year, a guitar player, that's John Gray.
Okay.
But, you know, you want to talk about other guitar players. Listening to all that Jimmy Smith stuff, you know, coming up with the blues, you know.
Yeah.
I got out of the B.B. King type of blues and funk and all of that and started
Right.
listening to the jazz stuff. But there's cats like Quentin Warren
I've heard it. He was with Jimmy Smith, yep.
and Eddie McFadden,
Yep.
Farnell Swartz.
Okay, yeah.
And one of the guys that I really dug comping-wise that I copied a lot was a cat by the name of Gene Edwards. He played with Groove Holmes.
Okay.
Now, he wasn't a great solo player,
Mm-hmm.
but that man could comp, and it felt so good. That man,
Yeah.
boy, you talk about Dr. Feelgood, man.
Yeah.
This cat could get it. You know, and he was a big influence on me with that. Just, you know, his feel, you know, with Groove.
Yeah.
You know, with Groove Holmes, and boy, that was a smoking trio.
There was a guitar player that I heard in LA back in the day named Billy something.
Billy Rogers.
Billy Rogers. What was he like?
Oh, he was an amazing guitar player, man. He, you know, he could play. You know, like take something in the middle, like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
He could play a whole chorus of 16th notes,
Right.
nonstop.
Wow.
You know, I mean, his technique off the chart.
Kind of like a Martino kind of guy.
But he could play Pat Martino as good or better than Pat Martino could.
Wow.
And then he could turn around and play George Benson as good as George Benson or better.
Wow.
I mean, this guy was amazing. The problem is there was already a George Benson and a Pat Martino.
Right.
That was the problem.
Yeah, yeah. You got to have your own thing.
Yeah. So back in those days, I would get a lot of work because I played like Ron Eschete.
Yeah, you got to play like
You know, I play like myself. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, as far as playing the guitar, I mean, this guy, he played a black. He had a jet black with white binding, 175.
Mm-hmm.
Gibson, and this guy can play the guitar. It was phenomenal. He was phenomenal.
Now, let me ask you about another guy. There's a Wes interview where they ask him who the best guitar player he ever heard. He said there was a guy in Montreal named Nelson Simons. Did you know him?
No,
or
I
hear about
did not know him. We should look him up.
I tried to look him up. I couldn't find anything, but I can't imagine how good this guy was because the interviewer was Wes was describing him. Wes actually brought up Joe DiOrio first. We all know Joe DiOrio was amazing. But he said...
Well, I played with Joe and I played a lot. In the 80s
you and Joe were tight. Yeah. Joe
we played a
DiOrio is
lot.
another guy. Now, I have a short connection with Joe DiOrio. I studied for 9 years with his teacher, Vince Breedice. You ever heard of Vince Breedice?
Yeah,
in Florida.
Joe used to talk about it.
Right. That's who I studied with. So Vince would bring Joe to Florida for workshops. I was already, we worked out of the fusion books and intervallic designs, and Joe was a big influence on my playing too. But no, like this Wes interview, he was saying to the guy, he goes, yeah, the guy would play chords, on every beat and every note, and the guy said, well, that's what you do. And Wes said, no, you don't understand. This guy, and I'm thinking, if Wes Montgomery's saying that, this guy must have been
I know what he's talking about because they did an interview with Wes.
Yeah.
And they put on, I think it was a blindfold test.
Okay.
And they put on Howard Roberts playing off that Color and Funky record. I think
Okay.
they were playing beep ba da da ba ba da da. Shoot, I'm having a brain poop.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know the two. When
Yeah.
lights are low.
Okay.
Okay. And Howard's playing this chord stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And they asked him about it. Said, "What do you think about it?" He says, "Man," he says, "he's playing." Wes couldn't even describe it.
Yeah.
You know, he says he's playing chords and single notes and chords. And
Yeah.
he's just, that's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, he was just astounded.
Yeah.
So I bet you that's what this cat was doing.
Yeah.
And
probably.
a lot of what Howard was doing, guess who he got it from?
George Van Eps.
That old man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, when I told you I met George, you know, and I asked him about the piece he played, lap piano,
Mhm.
and he said I got to fix the 19th bar, and I introduced myself as Ron Eschete, and he said, "Oh," he says, "Oh yes," he says, "I've heard of you." He says, "Howard Roberts has some really good things to say about you."
Wow.
You know, so I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
You know, I was so flattered, you know,
Yeah. I bet
that he
you
knew.
would.
But if I mentioned George Van Eps to Howard, he would bow his head like you just said,
Yeah.
you know, the second coming of St. Peter
Van
or
Eps was
somebody,
just so great.
you know. And, you know, a lot of the East Coast cats didn't know about George to their detriment.
You know, it really is. It's an interesting thing because, you know, I grew up in Florida and I spent a little time in New York, and, you know, I was an East Coast guy. And when I would get here and somebody would mention like an LA legend, I wouldn't know who they were, and they look at me like, how the hell don't you know? It's just a different thing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean, and there's probably New York players that LA guys haven't heard about, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like
Oh,
one of
yeah.
those things. But thank you, Ron, so much for your time. It was an amazing time talking to you and hearing all your stories, and I really appreciate meeting with me today.
My pleasure, my friend.
Cool, man. Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate it.